What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network. We are back to discuss a new series on HBO. It is called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It is a new show in the Game of Thrones universe. This one is a little bit different tonally than what we've seen previously from Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, but still, nonetheless, we're excited to talk about it for the next 6 weeks with you guys. I'm going to be one of your hosts for this episode. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined this time by Sean Villa.
Hello.
And Vinny Albano.
Hello, hello.
So I would say out of the three of us, I don't know necessarily how much you are entrenched in Thrones, Sean, but
I'm really entrenched in Thrones.
So like I'm probably the least attached to Thrones. I watched Game of Thrones twice.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it on the rewatch because I watched it for the first time by myself. Rewatched it during COVID with my whole family, which was such a great experience, getting to know kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
At House of the Dragon, we talked about this off camera with Liz before we started recording this one, but I'm in agreement with you. Season 1 I thought was really good. Season 2 left a lot to be desired, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But this takes the world and the franchise in a very different direction with one, starting with, to get everybody on board with this, it is a comedy. It is largely a comedy. It plays like a comedy in the way that it's structured, in the way that the editing is, in the way that the dialogue is written. And there is still obviously action-packed moments, not as many in this first episode, but to come. But George R.R. Martin has said as such with these novellas, he was going for a different kind of approach with Duncan Egg, which are two characters that we're mostly going to follow throughout this journey. So for you guys, and Vinny, I don't know how much you've read of in the books and stuff like that as well, but for you guys, what did you know going into this, and were you happy, surprised, not happy with the way the premiere kind of played out of Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
Yeah, so I know very little about like the foreseeable future for these characters. I know the premise. I won't spoil it now until I give a warning later, but these characters are important to the kind of the world of Thrones and Westeros for like their history. So I know kind of what the show is eventually going to lead to. But I don't know about the in-between. I really don't know anything about how this story kind of kicks off. It's the only thing in the Game of Thrones, I guess, compendium world, whatever you want to call it, that I haven't read. I've not read the Duncan Egg novels. So I would love to at some point. And that's honestly about this first episode. It feels like it would be a good read. Like I can kind of get like the flow of a book here. It feels sort of like the introductory chapter to a character. I'm not sure. This could be completely different from the way the novel starts. But yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued by what I saw so far. We can get into that, but yeah, generally speaking, I don't know really anything, which is new for me for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Vinny, what about you?
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I knew about The Hedge Knight, the novella that George R.R. Martin wrote. I knew about the characters, have no idea anything else really.
So in an interview, the showrunner Ira Parker actually said that this series kind of acts as a natural on-ramp for anyone that did not come to Game of Thrones the first time around, who might have been scared off by the violence and the brutality. So again, you're not going to see a lot of the things that you would have seen in the kind of the big show that obviously debuted in HBO in the 2010s and then the House of the Dragon. But this is more of an adventure kind of excuse me, way that they go about this. The lead character is, as you said, Sir Duncan Dunk the Tall, that is played by Peter Claffey. The young actor Dexter Ansell plays Egg. We get some Baratheons in this episode. We get the Fossaways, which I don't remember from Thrones if they were.
Yeah, I mean, I vaguely know some like nerd shit about them, but they're not that important.
Not important, yeah. But we do get an intro to one of those characters as well. And like I said, this is something that tonally feels very, very different than the other two installments within this world. So, Vinny, for you, after watching the premiere and not having that much info going into it, how did you feel about the way that the episode was structured, and were you happy that it had more of a comedic tone, or were you kind of thrown off by the way that they kind of just drop you in a very different series tonally than the previous Thrones shows?
Yeah, I personally loved this episode. I loved it. I just like seeing comedy. I like seeing a cast of characters and a story that is within this universe, but lighthearted and just genuinely good people. Because I feel like House of Dragons, Game of Thrones, the reason we like those series is because the nuanced take on all these characters and the morally gray, and I love that. I love it. But it's nice. It is a nice change of pace when you just have like two characters who are just like chill people, really cool people, and like they kind of have like this underdog what's the word, and there's an underdog aesthetic to them, right? So I really liked it. I like all the little comedic jabs. I could already tell I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this series. I think it's a great introduction to the characters, and for me, when it comes to like the comedic structure and all of that, again, I just love when you have these epic fantasy worlds that are super well built and super immersive, and then we could just take like a little side story and it's its own thing, but it exists within the world, it exists within the canon, it also has an effect on the canon. So that was my overall thoughts on that.
Sean, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle to put in the words about like how I feel about Game of Thrones, The Song of Ice and Fire, because I'm tempted to say it's one of the best stories ever told, but it's not done, and the show ends terribly, as everyone who's into this world knows. So I struggle to say that it's like, oh, it's a masterpiece, because let's get to the end, George. He actually listens to the podcast. Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of shit about Game of Thrones that I adore. I think I reference the character work that he does. I reference the way that he talks about themes in my own work all the time. And I think he also provides really easy avenues with how many characters have such complex emotional journeys and the decisions they make and arcs and hero's journey, etc. Like, every time that I'm talking to somebody about writing, I can usually reference something from Game of Thrones as a good example of that thing. I think he's amazing. I think the problem for me, or not the problem, but my hesitance towards this show, is that I think a lot of what makes Game of Thrones work for me, and this world in general work for me, is the sort of like punk rock nature of it. Of like, like, this ain't Lord of the Rings, bitch. We're gonna fucking like kill everybody. Yeah, like we're gonna introduce Pedro Pascal. Here he comes. He's so awesome. He's the greatest character ever. Boom, he's fucking dead. Boom, you killed all the Starks. Like, you just do all this crazy shit and really like rock your world. So I like that, and I like the grittiness of it, and like you were saying, the morally gray characters and everything. That all works for me. That's what pulled me into this world. Since then, I've gotten into sort of like the history of it. I read Fire and Blood. I read the World of Ice and Fire book. I got really obsessed with just like the great world building that he's done. And I will say what's intriguing about this is that this is maybe the first and only time ever that I've been like experiencing this world through one way or another where I went, this looks somewhat pleasant to live in. Because every other time I'm like, wow, this is like a nightmare universe. Yeah. There's no good place to be ever. So I'm intrigued by like whether or not this is going to work as sort of like an eye into the common folk, like these people that are basically just being oppressed and pillaged through all of Game of Thrones. If it's like, oh yeah, like they're actually just like some cool guys out there just hanging out, doing tournaments and drinking and having a good time. And it's like an avenue into something interesting about this world. Or if it might kind of like undermine what I think makes Game of Thrones so special.
Yeah.
So I'm half and half on it.
Yeah, I get that. I think that I see it from both sides, because Vinny, similar to you, I do like kind of having those adjacent stories within the bigger world where we can follow characters that are not necessarily always focused on. It reminds me very much of a show that I don't know. Again, I don't think either of you guys watch it, but Andor, in a different way. Again, tonally, it's a much more serious. It's kind of the flip side of what this show does, where Andor is a much more, like, obviously there's politics in Star Wars, but this is a lot more serious grounded drama with characters that are the citizens of the galaxy. This is something similar, but it flips it on its head and being more comedic. And I think the editing in this episode is great, because I think good editing is really important for good comedy.
Yeah.
And there are moments of comedy that, like you had said before we started recording, Sean, you're like, I don't know, like I didn't laugh that much. But for me, the moments I laughed were when you get those kind of quick moments that lead to that like tonal shift in your brain where you're like, oh, like this is not what I expect Thrones to be. So it's funny that they're kind of putting it in this context.
Yeah. I mean, I chuckled at the theme coming in, and I was watching it again with my dad, and we were watching it together, and I said prior to the show starting that I was like, I wonder if they're going to use that same theme song again. They're going to do it a third time because it's in House of the Dragon too.
Yeah.
Their iconic
Yes, I
theme
thought
song.
the same thing.
And it's a great theme, don't get me wrong, but when it starts to queue up, I was like, oh, here it is. And then it cuts to him taking a shit behind the tree. I was like, nice. Okay, good. This is going to be different. It's a different kind of show.
Mhm.
So I did laugh at that. I think that edit was really good. And then in general, the editing feels nice. I didn't necessarily laugh at it, but it's like pleasant to watch, if that makes sense. Like
it's
it
formulaic
flows.
in the right way that comedy editing should be.
Yes.
There's one particular performance. Like, I'm already so in on Lionel Baratheon. Like, I just think as a character, he's already hilarious and intriguing. Daniel Ings plays that character that we kind of see challenge Dunk in a way, and then they kind of have this nice tit for tat and this dance battle that becomes a battle of wits.
Yeah.
And if you look at the preview ahead of the season, they're going to kind of be in cahoots with one another throughout the season, which I'm excited for, to see kind of how that relationship forms. But the one thing, for, again, not reading any of the books, George R.R. Martin said that he's really pleased with the casting in particular of Duncan and Egg, and he thinks that they're really essential to the story. So we only get a little bit of Egg in this, but we obviously get a lot of Duncan. So for you, Sean and Vinny, what did you think about those characters being established, and are you interested on their stories in general based on what we get in the first 40-minute premiere?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about where these characters are going. I already like Dunk quite a bit, though. I think they do a really good job introducing him and making him likable. And I think it's just because he's one of those characters that just seems like an honest fella. Like, he's just trying to get by, and he's not doing any devious little finger shit. He's not running around scheming and screwing people over to get what he wants. He's just very straightforward. I'm going to ask you for something. If you say no, I guess I'm going to leave. But it's not in like a cowardly way either. Like, I can tell that this guy's got a code. He's got honor. He wants to be a good knight. It's like an honorable cause. He's trying to live up to this expectation by a father figure who I'm sure we'll learn more about. So yeah, it's endearing. He's endearing. And I think the performance has a lot to do with it. I forget the gentleman's name, but he's very good. I think
Peter Claffey
does a really good job.
The actor's name. Vinny, what did you think about the way we kind of get the introduction to Duncan Egg in this?
I like it. Similar to what I said previously in my previous response, is I just like that Dunk and Egg feel very just nice people within a world filled of just utter evil, And Egg, I hope we see some good character development there, because I feel like this is just like the very archetypal trope within medieval stories, or just like storytelling in general, right? You have like the underdog squire knight going on. So Egg has some great potential here. We can see some great insight and development to his character that I'm hoping they execute well. I can't say it now because obviously I can't see into the future, but it's there. The seeds have been planted already, and it's there. So
the egg will hatch.
Yeah, the egg. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I was saying this to you, Sean, before we started recording, and Vinny, maybe this is new information to you, I'm not sure, but I saw it online. This is the longest episode of this first season.
Yeah.
At 42 minutes. A lot of the episodes are anywhere from I think 30 to 36 minutes. Which again is more formulaic too. I mean, on premium cable and now streaming, there's not really limitations on even if it's a comedy. Sometimes comedies will have 45 to an hour episodes, and dramas could have even sometimes 30-minute episodes. But this being kind of laying the foundation for this, I think that it will lend itself well because it's in these novellas, these short stories. I don't know if the Hedge Knight is one singular story, and then episode 2 is going to be another novella with these characters. But for you, when you hear that, does that scare you in terms of the way that they could develop these characters, or do you think
there's a couple things about this show that scare me? One of them is exactly what you're talking about, which is that they have an unfinished source material. I've been down this road. George R. R. Martin's a great writer. I would say that I think there's 3 novellas, so I'm gonna say that's 3 seasons worth of story. and then after that, end the show maybe. I don't, because they're not too great at it so far. The track record of deviating from the work that isn't finished isn't going too well. But I mean, hopefully we get 3 good seasons of something. The other thing that worries me is Egg, because I know Egg's very important, and I like him in this show, but he's a young kid, and
Yeah.
I think that he stays a young kid in the source material. He's supposed to be like a boy. So if Egg, is suddenly 6'1" or whatever this kid turns out to be, we're gonna have like a Millie
Stranger
Bobby.
Things
Yeah, right,
situation.
exactly. I was just gonna say a Millie Bobby Brown situation. That might have an effect on the show too. But I don't want to be like overly negative about the future of a show that has 1 episode. I do like this episode. I think it's like Vinny said, it's very pleasant. I think the comedy bits are there. It's good. It's got some good character work going on. I just I don't know. I go into Thrones now very hesitant on everything, especially like House of the Dragon's got a new season coming out. I go in kind of like, all right, like let's see, fingers crossed, because I've seen how this franchise can suddenly just
Yeah,
out of
it doesn't
nowhere.
it doesn't have the same trust of their audience as they did
No.
going into the final season of Thrones. I think that we've deviated more from that, especially because of I think the first season of House of the Dragon was kind of a return to form in some ways, where you're like,
Okay,
all right,
yeah, you're
I
like, all right, they're cooking again.
yeah,
We're back.
and then they completely changed showrunners in season 2, and there's issues with the strikes, and there's issues with COVID, and it becomes a big problem, and they decided to split that season up because I think the HBO wanted them to save all the big battle sequences for a 3rd season because they wanted to cut back in a 2nd season, which is troubling for a show that's so reliant on CG and the bigger overall things. Like this series, I think is it's not going to be as much of a problem because it doesn't seem like there's going to be dragons appearing in this.
It does seem a lot smaller scale for now. Again, I don't know where this goes. I have no idea. Like there could be the king riding in on his dragon to view this tourney for the next episode. I have no clue. But I think, about House of the Dragon was House of the Dragon comes from a book that's done. And whether or not they adapt it well is sort of just like up in the air.
Yeah.
But it is finished. It's a completed story. It has a source material to pull from. And as far as I know, Duncan Egg is another situation where George R.R. Martin's like, yeah, I'm going to write the next 7 novels. Yeah, okay, sure, buddy. Sure. So I don't know. I'm more apprehensive to go into a show that's in this world that has unfinished source material again. Because unfortunately, because of how catastrophically bad the Game of Thrones finale is, I'm almost like, I don't want to put myself through this again.
Yeah.
I don't want to fall in love with these characters and then, oh no, they ruined it.
I'll give you some good news as I'm reading this article here. The 2nd season for this was already announced before the premiere of the 1st season.
Okay.
So they're probably already in production, if not already, on the 2nd season. So at least in terms of Egg and his age, it's not going to be a problem, at least for a potential season 2.
All right, good.
So we have the continuation. We have something to look forward to. But Vinny, I know you've been very vocal, not on the podcast, but off the cameras about the way that Thrones was handled and the way that the series was. And so I want you to kind of just go a little bit off of what Sean was talking about in terms of trust for this world, and how does that lean into your viewing experience for the Night of the Seven Kingdoms?
Yeah, I totally get where you guys are coming from and where audiences are coming from, because I too lost trust. Then again, I am very optimistic because different showrunners, different people handling the helm. D&D, David Dan. Yeah.
There you go.
So thank you. They lost my trust, honestly, even before season 8 and season 7, when it was very clear, like, okay, what are we doing here? Why are we going so quick all of a sudden? The whole structure of the show started to change very abruptly. So I am optimistic because I do think Ira Parker, is that how you pronounce his name?
I don't know if it's Ira or Ira. I'm not sure.
Ira Parker, he seems has a lot of experience under his belt. I know he worked on Black Mirror, Black Mirror, right?
Oh.
That's the sci-fi show, right? Am I tripping right?
Yeah,
Okay, yes.
Netflix anthology sci-fi.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic. I am. I think that we have very competent writers here, and they seem to be passionate about the source material.
Well, I'm looking at some of his filmography right now, Ira Parker. he was a co-executive producer and he wrote on some of House of the Dragon, so he already has
Okay.
experience within
The world.
the world, which is great. He also was a writer on Better Things, which was an FX comedy that also has, like, the FX comedies have a lot more character development than normal comedies do, where it leans a lot more into character study and then building scenarios around these characters. So based off of that and kind of where we end up at the end of this first episode, I'm more pleased and intrigued with this as a limited kind of thing than I was going into it, because when I had heard it was like it was a comedy and it doesn't have to do with the larger overall thing, I'm like, well, I don't read the books, so for me it's like, do I really I have to really care about these characters in order to go on this journey with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the word that I would use to describe what I think the show is going to be is charming for me. Like, I think the characters are endearing. I'm already on board with the plight. I like, even though it's strange for me and I'm not totally sure how I feel about it yet, I do kind of enjoy the idea of going into this world that's usually so dark and terrible and just having kind of like fun with it and just enjoying like the cool aspects of it, you know, because it is a world that has like dragons and wizardry and all sorts of shit. Also, correction earlier, Sean. Dragons are extinct by this point. What are you thinking, dude? Come on, sorry. What a loser that past version of me was.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what you know in terms of some lineage that may or may not be privy to some? I mean, if you've read the novellas.
Yeah, well, I know almost all of this because I read World of Ice and Fire and I read Fire and Blood, which is the Targaryen history. So because I read the Targaryen history, I kind of know about like the events that occur at certain periods of time in this world. And Egg, huge spoiler, is a Targaryen. He's in the lineage. He's in that book. He eventually will become the king. So I'm totally fine with that being a spoiler because I think that's going to be revealed shortly. That Egg, you know, is a Targaryen. I don't think that's going to be something they hold until the end of a season. I mean, I don't know, fucking who knows. But I'm still like totally comfortable knowing that spoiler because I don't think it really has much to do with what these novels or novellas are about and what the show is going to be. I think it's going to be the story of a young boy learning how to be the king through this guy who's just like a good noble person. So I like that idea, which is not present in the pilot. And I think that was another part of me that was like, wow, like that's a really cool idea for a story. And like, we haven't quite gotten to that yet, you know? So like, it's kind of strange. It's like this introductory thing that I thought was going to be like, just basically telling me what I already know, that like the show is going to be, the story is going to be about. And we're not there yet. So it was like a little off-putting.
It sets you up by the end of the episode where they have that first kind of interaction. And he's like, all right, you can follow me along. Just listen to
it's
what
like, okay, now the show starts.
It's going to start picking up after this. Yeah. Which again, it is interesting that we're going to be telling that in kind of 30-minute chapters for the next 5 weeks, because it's not a lot of time with these characters. So you would have to think that hopefully the lead performers are able to kind of have a really great chemistry between the two of them, or else it won't necessarily work. In regard to the Targaryen stuff, they do show in the look ahead that there are 3 Targaryen characters that are going to be coming in this season at some point. Aerion Targaryen, Baelor Targaryen, and Maker Targaryen are the 3.
Yeah, those are some cool characters. Historically.
Aerion is played by Finn Bennett, who I really like. He was in the last season of
Is
True
that
Detective.
Aerion?
Aerion, yes.
Okay.
He was the best part of True Detective season 4 for me, which I thought largely was a really disappointing show. He's also in Warfare, which has like the best young cast.
Oh man, I want to see a picture of this film.
But I'm excited to see kind of what he adds to it and the dynamic of the conflict that's going to happen with him in Dunk. But Vinny, knowing that Targaryen lineage and what's to come with that as well, what are you hoping to get out of the next 5 weeks of this show that's going to make it a satisfying kind of adventure for you to kind of go on with these characters?
Yeah, I think, and I honestly hope that this stays contained. You know, we don't have much time to go crazy epic scale. No, and it's not. That's what I like about this. Is they present it very explicitly to you. This is the story of the Hedge Knight, right? Very humble little guy, right? Well, little, but you know,
the tall,
very tall. Yeah. Anywho, that's what I like about it. I think that if the point I want to be satisfied by the end of the season is that we see this tourney play out. and we just have some really great character moments, and where that leads us into season 2. The what happened, loss, win of Turney, we don't know. How does that propel us forward? And that's kind of really all I want. I just wanted to be really focused on the character moments, because that's what I loved here. I love like when he's talking to himself. I love when he's talking to the horses. I love even the little moments where he sees that girl who's like the actress on the puppet show, and they meet eyes, and there's like the little moment. Baratheon, him talking to him, and how they get drunk together, and then we have that cut to he's wearing his crown.
Yeah.
And I love these little character moments, and I just want to keep that going. I'm actually of the opinion that I felt during season 2 of House of the Dragon that the pace of a lot of the episodes, which we covered like the issues behind the scenes of why that might have been with House of the Dragon, but the pace of a lot of House of Dragon episodes was quite shit. And it was like, oh, let's start with something, and then the 45 minutes of just like nothing, or just like really stretched out garbage, and then leave on a crazy cliffhanger. But with these 30 minutes, which I hope they are being consciously selective of like, okay, let's keep the important bits in here. And I think that's actually going to make a lot more satisfying of a viewing compared to the last times we were in this world, which was season 2 of House of Dragon.
Yeah. It's a big year for Thrones. They got this at the beginning of the year, House of the Dragon, I believe, or is that come back next year?
In the summer, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think it is 2026.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big year for the Thrones universe. Going to be interesting to see kind of where they end up going with the show. I'm more intrigued than I thought I was going to be with the premiere. So hopefully we get a little bit more diving into this week to week, but I think that's pretty much it. I don't have anything else unless you guys did. But let us know in the comment section, what did you guys think of the premiere of HBO's A Night of the Seven Kingdoms? This is the newest show in the Game of Thrones universe. Did you guys like it? Were you thrown off by the tonal change that they're going for with this? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to have a conversation with you guys. Like this video if you guys can, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Brave Media Network. We're going to be covering this show for the next 6 weeks. It's going to be me, it's going to be Sean, it's going to be Vinny. Hopefully we're going to get Mark and Liz on here as well to discuss some of these episodes week to week. But that's pretty much it. Just signing off. I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I've been Sean Villa.
And I've been Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.